Hello, everyone. Hello, all makers around the world. Super excited to welcome you to our November edition of the Maqer meetup, our opportunity to touch base and explore what digital transformation means for LafargeHolcim and where we stand on the journey. Super excited that all of you joined. We might actually have the biggest crowd yet for essentially our sessions here. So great that you're all on board, and I'm sure it has to do with the topic, data-driven organization, the power of big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence for our business. We are psyched to have you here and to showcase some of the great work that we've been doing throughout our footprint and through all steps of the value chain, or what data means for us and how we're going to take this into in the journey. We'll have great cases from our business leaders, and we are also super proud to have Jochen Werling here, our Chief Information Officer, and Anurag Harsh, our Chief Data Officer. They will share with you what these cases mean for you and how you can accelerate your transformation in your footprint with essentially the tools that will be in your hand shortly. So it's going to be an exciting section. I'll hand over to Bengt, who will lead us through and will take us to some of the great work that's been happening on the ground. Bengt, we're excited to hear from you.
Thanks, Philip, and welcome to everybody to today's Maqer meetup, which is dedicated to data and how we can leverage data insights for our business. When we discussed about the key elements to become a digital leader, we mentioned always three things. First, to manage technology differently in an agile way and always focused on the user needs. Secondly, to leverage the innovation potential of startup ecosystems, which will allow us to find innovative ways to solve our business challenges and open up new ways how we do business. And third, data. Today we will talk now what it means to become more data-centric. And we have today three leaders from our business who will share how data is driving their daily operations. We have that in commercial, in logistics, and in manufacturing. And in the second part of the meetup, we have our internal data experts, as Philip already introduced, who share their thoughts of how to make our organization much more data-driven. And there will be enough time for Q&A and some discussions with them. So please put your questions during the call in the Q&A section. And please put it in the Q&A section and not in the chat section. And we will have the possibility then to address them in the discussion round. With this, I would like to start with a data case from the commercial area, and I would like to welcome Chris Clow with us. Hi, Chris.
Good morning, good afternoon. If you can hear me okay, start my video. So
perfect.
You can see me. Hello.
Hi, Chris. So,
all right.
Quick introduction for Chris. Chris is general manager of our ready-mix concrete business for Aggregates Industries US in the Mid-Atlantic region. And the solution he will talk about actually started with a predictive order cancellation model, which was driven by Jean-Philippe Thierry, who is kind of the US ready-mix performance director, and Johan from our digital team. And after the development phase, the question was then, where do we pilot such a solution in the business? And Chris, with his team, volunteered to test the benefit for the day-to-day business, and he will give us now today an overview of the learnings from this pilot. So over to you, Chris. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Bent, and good morning, good afternoon, as I said to everybody. Again, my name is Chris Clow. Just as a quick introduction and some scope as to our business here in the Mid-Atlantic region of US Ready-Mix. We operate across 3 states as well as the District of Columbia. So Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia, we operate 17 ready-mix plants. And we're delivering approximately 750,000 cubic meters of concrete each year. So we were very pleased to be asked to participate or invited to participate in this pilot program to study a new way of thinking about the problem that faces our industry and our business, in particular here in the Mid-Atlantic region, every day when it comes to scheduling orders and trying to be as efficient as we can with the resources that we have. If you can go to the next slide, just to highlight some of the quantitative measures of our challenges here in the U.S. as it relates to order cancellations. And there are some real facts here that I'm sure a lot of our businesses across the globe can relate to. In particular, in this region, we do have a very high percentage of order cancellations for various reasons, which I'll get into in a minute. The consequential impact on our inefficiencies, as you can see, 7.6% of days where drivers complete only 1 or 0 trips after clocking in. We're obviously trying to minimize those because that's tremendously inefficient. And then driver hours left unutilized. So moving on to the approach that we took here in the region to look at it in partnership, as Ben mentioned, with Jean-Philippe Thierry, our performance director here in the US, as well as the digital team. So looking at the situation, which I've already highlighted a number of different factors contributing to the problem, we're typically addressing this problem through history, through experience, trusting the decision-making of our people to make good decisions as it relates to how many drivers to call in for a somewhat uncertain book of orders for the next day. And so, as it's mentioned here, the desired solution is to empower dispatch with a robust machine learning enabled solution to effectively get ahead of order cancellations and minimize excess labor expense. So really approaching it from a data perspective, what can the data tell us that we're not currently using in our decision making? That was the effort in front of us. You can move forward. Thank you. All right, so a number of different factors on the left side, as you can see: geographic, where the order is, seasonal, as well as relating to the day of the week. We tend to see a lot of different patterns occurring in terms of order cancellations on Mondays as compared to Fridays. The weather forecast, obviously, typically we would assess that qualitatively rather than quantitatively. So now we're trying to use more quantitative data on weather. Order attributes, quantities and order status, and then historical customer behavior. And all of those things go into the algorithm that was developed by our digital team. And the decision making, as you can see on the right-hand side, how much labor to allocate to the work for tomorrow. Perfect, thank you. All right, so this is kind of a busy slide, but I do want to just highlight some of the outputs of the exercise. And this is really where I think the focus of the discussion could be most valuable. We spent probably 6 months working on this with the digital team. Over time, the iterations of this process continue to improve. And as you'll note, these are some of the real pros and cons that we experienced with this. I would certainly say that it is not really a finished project. We did see some net improvements in our exercise, which for me certainly means it's worth investing more time and energy to try and get better at this. As you can see on the right-hand side, model displays human thinking skills. The model is very easy to read and understand. Both of those are very true. And then the actual yardage today exactly matched the model's prediction. That did happen from time to time. It was actually pretty beneficial. On the other side, as you note, there's a few negatives. Model misclassified big tickets orders on one day, and we still need a better way of utilizing will call data. So net, it was quite positive. The last thing I'll say here, now change management and adoption of the model recommendations are key to make a difference. So as Philip mentioned, integration of a data-driven approach like this within a workforce that's used to making decisions independently and without that input, that really is the change management exercise here. And to try and make it such that our people aren't stepping back and saying, okay, I'm going to let the machine make my decisions. No, we want them to use the input to help them make better decisions. And that's really been a huge part of the exercise around here. You can move forward. So that, I guess in summary, that really is just the a short snapshot of what we've done here in the US, and certainly happy to take any questions a little bit later on. I think I've got maybe 1 minute left, but it's up to you, Ben. How you want to go forward?
So Chris, I think it's interesting how you explain essentially the iteration elements. How do you actually work with your team to make sure that they don't feel that they're being sidelined by some black box model? How's the discussion going, and what are the points you raise with your team in order to facilitate the transition?
So one of the keys to success, Philip, is to be clear with our team from the very beginning what we're trying to achieve every day as a business. And that's one of the things I'm very proud of here in this region. I think all of our people, if you were to ask them what we're trying to achieve as a business, it's all about getting the product to our customer on time and as efficiently as possible. The results that we're measuring every day, every week, every month in terms of our financial performance are very, very clear, and everybody knows those results. So when we bring something like this to the table and introduce it in that context, it's fairly easy for our people to understand and connect those two things. If you don't do a good job of telling your people up front what their objectives are, then something like this could be perceived very threatening. That's how I would characterize it.
Great.
Good.
Go ahead, Ben, maybe for the question from Philip Matthew.
Exactly. There's one question from Philip. Did you define the impacting factors, day of week, weather, etc., from an intuitive, common sense view, or did it come from analysis of historical data? Can you comment on that, Chris?
Sure, I can. Yes. Typically, the intuitive common sense approach has historically been the way. And if you look at dispatches across the business, that's typically how we use it. We typically expect a lot of cancellations on Monday, anecdotally. The tool, on the other hand, and the process that was developed turns that from a qualitative assessment to a quantitative assessment. So we're actually able to assign percentages to the likelihood of an order canceling on a Friday versus a Monday. So it brings a little bit more of a data element to it, and we found that quite interesting.
Okay, thank you. And there is another question from Suman. Do we align also our production based on the model?
Yes, the two go hand in hand on the basis of how many drivers we're calling in and assigning to each plant on each day based on the schedule. The production will follow that in terms of the workforce we have for operating and running the plants. We'll typically shut plants as early as we possibly can to be as efficient as we can while still meeting the demand. And the process supports that, that's for sure.
Okay, and then there is another question from Nigel, which I think goes in the direction, if we are also taking overbookings, are the ready-mix sales teams taking orders that will cause overcapacity unless orders are canceled?
Yes, in a lot of ways what we do, it's a lot like how the airlines operate in terms of overbooking flights with the expectation there's a certain amount of cancellations, and there's that iteration occurs at various checkpoints over the course of the day. This tool is intended to help us make better decisions, or this process is intended to help us make better decisions on that front.
Interesting. Great. Thanks a lot, Chris. So if there will be further questions, we might be able to address them still in a next round. And with this, I would like to move to another data case in the logistics area and welcome here Kaz and Arnaud with us. Hello, both.
Hello.
Hello, Bengt.
Hi there. So Kaz is the country CEO of Lafarge South Africa, and Arnaud the digital lead for Middle East and Africa. And you will tell us now a little bit more about your insights that you get from the Transport Analytics Center. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Bengt. I think for the participants who are attending the MIA digital calls every month, I think you've already heard quite a bit from Kaz regarding the great efforts he's doing with his team in South Africa with the Transport Analytics Center. And I think now an opportunity, Kaz, for you to show this to the to show this outside of the Middle East Africa region. And from that point of view, maybe it would make sense for you to actually start with explaining what exactly the reason was for you to use the data insights that are available in the Transport Analytics Center.
All right, thanks, Anu, and good afternoon, everyone. Look, we are operating in a very competitive market in South Africa, and what we noticed, especially with the downturn that we had, is we needed to go further and further away from our areas of distribution. Now, despite our prices being high, we noticed a significant deterioration in terms of the margins that we were making. And so we decided to, we had this opportunity to look at the Transport Analytics Center, and it gave us the opportunity to see where the leakages were happening. So if you go to the first slide, Anu, typically what you would expect is that on the bottom left, the further away you go from your plants, your distribution cost should be reducing. And what we noticed on the right is that we were not following this trend, and hence that's the reason that we were losing a lot on margin. And that was essentially because we had a situation with a transport monopoly, but had never had the facts, the good data facts, to be able to renegotiate the rates and make the rates follow a really nice reducing curve to make sure that even if we go further, we would maintain our margins. So for the first time, at least once we did this exercise, we had the data that we could take to the transporters in order for us to negotiate better rates.
So if I compare the two graphs, it seems that quite a bit of work that had to be done. So how did you actually get started, and what have you learned along the way?
Look, we had to correct something like 6,000 data points in order to get started. And while that presents a significant effort at the beginning, I think once the picture becomes clear in terms of how much money we are leaving on the table, the team got, motivated to then start working on this. And we had also, I know everybody talks a lot about data cleansing. We had a good opportunity to use some tools to very quickly cleanse the data and have the facts right in front of us.
Maybe Felicia, we can go to the next slide. Thank you.
So as I was saying, Anu, out of the data, we could see the outliers. This was the first really, how can I say, low-hanging fruit. And we were able to go back to the transporters and negotiate down route by route, area by area, to bring it back into the in line with what is expected. And of course, the initial part, as I said, you had to cleanse the data, be sure, and the initial buy-in from the team was challenging. But once the data was clean, what was interesting is that not only were we not negotiating based on gut feeling, the team were then able to have much more interesting data in the tool. For instance, on the right-hand side, you would see that on a month-on-month basis, the team, based on the data in the system, were able to set themselves new targets for that month based on the lowest rate that's available, and then use that to be able to see if they could drive down the costs. And in some cases, it was more successful than others, but this is an initiative that was driven directly by the team once the data was there, and every month, based on the data, they'll set a new target. So out of this, what we have seen is running this approach of allocating transporters to the lowest cost based on the data that we have. We've been able to save about 230,000 euros versus a target of 750 for a 12-month period. And also the challenges we had with power buyers, the data allowed us to really bring that to the fore and allowed us to extend our customer base and go in new directions.
Great, thank you very much, Cas, for this clear explanation. And I'm sure that there is you're going to make some further progress in getting impact. I'm looking forward already for your next appearance for sure in the MIA digital calls.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Cas, and thank you, Arnaud. Super interesting to hear how you have kind of engaged the teams there and how they came operational with the tool and setting targets and so on. A super interesting process. So we have here a question from Alex Schelt on the reaction of the transporters when they saw the irregularities in the freight curve. Can you say something on that?
Yeah, so I mean, we got both reactions. We had transporters that could see that, and it was a bit straightforward to really say, can we correct this, because you should be making, you know, the rate should be going lower downstream. And we managed to succeed with those and got savings directly. And then you had the power buyers, the people that, you know, they knew that the rates were high, but they were power buyers and they simply said no. What that led us to believe, in fact, it gave the team confidence to go out in the market and look for new transporters. So I have one transporter that was carrying 70% of our bulk products that said no. We went out into the market, and now that transporter only carries 25% of the market, and we've got a new transporter base. So that's the power of data as well. You can, you know, start new business models, but you can explore different areas you were not exploring for many years.
Excellent, great. Thanks a lot. So again, if you have further questions, please put them in the Q&A section, and we will also have later the opportunity to discuss them. With that, we come to
Bengt, one more question for Cas. How did you manage with your team to get the pressure up? I would imagine that you now all of a sudden had dozens of new interactions with suppliers, with some uncomfortable discussions maybe about pricing and so on. How did you work with your team to make sure that you really use the data to achieve the savings? How did the change management part work?
On the change management, Philip, in fact, at the beginning, I literally had to be with the team, working directly with the team on a weekly basis, looking at what the data is, agreeing actions, giving the teams a week or two to come back with the results. And, it wasn't straightforward at the beginning, but when they started to see some wins come through and some new initiatives come through, literally I could step back, and they're the ones that started to drive the process. So you've got to get over that hurdle to really start convincing people that, no longer should we base our decisions on gut. Let's take the facts, let's go out there. But the change management was, I think, for the first a couple of months, weekly calls to really follow the progress.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Cas, again. So with that, let's move to our third data case today, which is coming from the manufacturing area, and more specifically in the area of cement quality control. Warm welcome to Babis, who is the optimization and environment manager at our cement operations in Greece. Good afternoon, Babis.
Good afternoon, Bengt.
Thank you for being with us, and we are interested to hearing about your insights.
It is my pleasure. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I'm really excited today to introduce you to SEMQ in the coming 3 slides. I will start with what is SEMQ, what SEMQ stands for. SEMQ stands for cement quality. If we move on, Felicia, for one slide, please. Thank you. SEMQ, it is an online application connected with our plant processes through PACT and provides in real time cement performance prediction, both for early and late strengths. But what is the technical problem behind? We all know that late cement strengths, similar to concrete, are determined only 28 days after the production. This huge time lag is due to the measurement itself, and it cannot be altered. And because of this, we know that it causes loose control, higher product quality fluctuation. In many cases, it leads to overquality because by nature, we tend to operate in the comfort zone, and inevitably goes to higher production cost. Imagine how differently we could operate our plants and drive our processes if we knew this information not 28 days later, but now. This is what SEMQ is doing, as it predicts cement performance in real time during production. It combines all available quality information, current and past, with advanced modeling techniques, which are embedding plant experience. And also with the accurate SEMQ predictions, help us to adjust fast our grinding process and minimize cement quality fluctuation perceived by the end users. One slide more. Thank you. We use SEMQ on a daily basis in order to adapt our processes. And why this is most important for us? Because SEMQ is providing us the environment for easy data visualization, both for current and historical data, and take decisions based on deviations and trends. It gives us the top 10 influencers of early and late strength, and which are useful for our processes. It gives us useful insights, and also it supports our root cause analysis in case of incidents. Last but not least, we have easy access to model accuracy, and always there is a data science expert team on call in order to provide us with the latest and the best available models. Last is that we use SEMQ right now for 2 months now, and we work on potential annual savings of 300 kilo Swiss francs and 13,000 tons of CO2 from clinker factor reduction through daily and more accurate reaction on cement process based on deviation between targets and predictions. And we are expecting less variation in late strengths, increased customer satisfaction, lower product cost, and products with lower CO2 footprint. In the long run, we expect less workload for the plant lab, and of course, potential differentiation versus competition. Thank you. I'm open to any questions if there is any.
So Babis, let me ask you the same question. You talked about a very nice analysis of key influencers, and then you actually go to daily reactions instead of bi-weekly. How do you, transfer this? How do you make this happen with your plant team and change the structure around this?
This is something that we used to do it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, having some common meetings between some different people. The fact is that our decisions were based on the personal experience that each one of us has, and for all the team, it was something that was missing. So very easily, we said, okay, let's try this and see what is the result. Try to give our experience to fit the models with our experience and see how it comes, what is the result. So it was, let's say, it was easily adopted by the team. We didn't have any, let's say, we didn't face any difficulty in order to use it. Of course, there was a transition period because every time we scrutinized all the different results, that all the different predictions that the model was giving back to us. But after some period of using and familiarizing ourselves with the model, then we really be grateful for having it and using it on a daily basis.
Thank you, Babis.
Yeah.
We have a question there about if SEMQ is applicable to any cement plant, regardless of raw materials and fuel used.
I think yes. It is. Because the process that we followed in order to have it, to start it up in our plant is that we feed it with plant information. We didn't use any information from other plants, so it is a model that you need to feed it with your own results, which are plant specific. And of course, you need to somehow to try to give your experience, to explain what are the variations of the data that you have. And as soon as with the data science team, you import this information to the model, then it will adjust and it will start giving you much more better predictions that we do the quality team. I mean.
And maybe just to add on, actually, very good point, Babis. Just to add on, SEMQ is based on the data that exists already in the plant. You're not measuring anything different. You're not using different lab equipment. You use the data that you already have for the first step and to move into the usage.
And maybe that's a follow-up question there also, Frank, on how many plants are currently using SEMQ and what would it take for a plant to pilot in their operations?
So Babis, if you don't mind, I take that question. So currently we have 5 plants using SEMQ. These 5 teams have been part of the, let's say, development over the last couple of months, and Babis and his team are at the forefront here of not only piloting, but actually in bringing this data case to use in the daily business. As Babis said, they're using it on a daily basis every day since something like 2 months, showing the benefits and actually changing the way they operate in the lab, how the people communicate between the lab team and the production team, how the operating procedures work, how the instructions are given to the operators. All this has started to change slightly based on the new predictions that are available.
Okay, thank you, Frank. We have another question for Babis from Philip Matthew. He asks, does the model work well with varying quality of clinker? For example, for a grinding unit with multiple clinker sources? Can you comment on that, or?
This for sure will introduce a disturbance to the model. But given that we feed the model with all available data, if there are such cases, it is likely that the algorithm that is running behind to identify this pattern, and by giving the signals that we are changing clicker quality, it could readjust the prediction. But this is a speculation from my side, because in our case, we have only one clinker quality. So I do not have an experience on this topic. I think that there will be no absolute answer to this. Someone has to try it and see if it is okay or not.
Also, the way the models work for the plant in Wollers and also other plants is there's one model per cement type. And if the clinker varies, as such, is not an issue, as long as there is enough data available in the past that the model can learn from it.
Okay, thank you. And then there are 2 questions which link to integration of SEMQ. First one is it integrated with DCS and corrective actions are taken automatically based on the feedback from the model?
No, for the moment, the way that it is running today is that the SEMQ is connected with the PACT, and PACT is connected with the plant process. The action is not taken automatically, but it is we go through on a daily basis through the predictions, and based on the predictions, we do it manually. We are run this for 2 months, but this is something that also we have asked from Frank and the team that is supporting this, if there is a tool, because right now there is no automatic tool in order to get the information from SameQ and implement automatically the change in the recipe or in the grinding parameters. This is something that we are thinking of, and it might come in the future.
SameQ is a platform, and we can basically innovate on top of it, meaning that we can use it in different ways. The case, how Babish explains it right now, that's the most advanced that we have, I would say, using it through packed and giving the right instructions. There's another case in another plant where actually the results are being transferred into the control room, and the operator can take action based on those predictions directly. So that's even closer to the production. A fully automated integration would then somehow be the third step that we could do, but I think it requires a lot of trust in systems and reliability on those systems, on internet connections, on everything, that we actually entrust a model our multi-million-dollar worth of equipment, right? So there's probably a learning phase in between. Right now, there's always a person taking a decision.
Okay. And another question, which is maybe partially answered, is SameQ linked with MillMaster, and how often are you making adjustments to quality set points based on the SameQ predictions?
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis. Of course, on a daily basis, we review the situation. We check what are the predictions, because every day the new predictions are coming in. We check what is the difference versus our target, because there will be some targets. And in most of the cases, on a daily basis, we change the recipe. SameQ is not connected to MillMaster. MillMaster is connected with other parameters, but not recipe, not cement recipe.
Okay. Thank you, Babis, for this interesting case, and Frank for the additional information. Now we have heard three interesting cases which leverage data, and we have heard from all the business people how important it was to engage the teams and how this is influencing their daily operations. I think it's also all these three solutions which we have heard of are able to scale also in other footprints. And with that, I would like to come to our discussion round where we have Jochen, Anurag, and Philip. And again, I would like to encourage you, post your questions that you are having to these three experts in this field. And maybe to start a discussion, let's have a look at the results of this brief survey, which you have completed, or many of you have completed yesterday evening. We asked you three questions. First of all, what comes first to your mind when talking about becoming a data-driven organization? Second question was, where do you start a data project? And third, where will data have the biggest impact on our organization? So to look at your feedback and to start with the first question we have here, we see that about 2/3 of you say that you think first about change management when we want to become more data-driven. And the other 1/3 is about split between data and technology, which need to be addressed to make this happen. On the second question, where to start a project, it's again about 2/3 focusing on the real business problem. And we have heard now three examples of good examples on how that was tackled. But also many of you reacted on maybe own experiences when embarking on such a journey, and said there is the point about the collecting and cleansing of the data. And the third question about who are the main beneficiaries, where we have more than 60% saying that these are the frontline workers, like what we have heard now, kind of the dispatchers, the transport teams, or the plant operators, while 30% see the strategic value in such data to take better decisions at top management level. maybe to open up the discussion round, Anurag, do you want to share your reactions and views on those 3 cases that we have just heard before, and maybe also on the feedback or your view on those survey questions?
Sure. Thank you, Bengt, and thank you, everybody. We were pleasantly surprised, actually, we would say, with the results, and actually very delighted in some ways that, like everybody else, I think you too believe that change management is a very important aspect of data transformation, and for us to move to a data-centric, data-focused organization. And of course, as the second pie chart shows, the fact that it all has to start with defining what the business problems is. It's not about collecting data. Well, we're collecting copious amounts of data, but it's not about, hey, let's create a data lake, or let's invest in heavy technology to be able to figure out what it can do, or more systems and things like that. It's really about, how do we define what the problem statement is, and how do we invest in the change management around getting to the desired outcome, and how we, at least in the digital data and technology spectrum, define change management essentially is the process, the tools, and the techniques to manage the people side of things to achieve your desired business outcome. And that's where we could really help you, in addition to the technology, of course. And this is a very important aspect to change management that should be really at the center of our combined vision of the art of the possible, and as far as data is concerned. I mean, here we're talking about developing a charter that articulates our business goals and the strategies to achieve those goals. How do we identify the stakeholders, functional change agents? Those are the people who will be key to removing the roadblocks and creating advocacy if brought in early. These are examples that we've learned by doing these projects in the last 6 months. Some of the examples that you saw today. How do we create or align your teams with our teams, with data, with digital, and with IT teams to manage all of the data effort and the governance structure? How do we maintain, and this is a very important thing, a change backlog? How do we start tracking and mitigating risks, things like end user adoption, employee resistance, because you're going to have that. Retirement of legacy processes, because when you start to do this kind of innovation, you will start to realize that there are certain processes you might not need. And so then how do you select your business outcome? How you uncover the value that this is bringing to your audience through what we call as journey mapping? How do we design the user experience, the solution elements? How do we document your execution roadmap? These are very important aspects of this kind of transformation that we're talking about, that we will encourage you whenever we engage with you on these kind of projects to work with us, to think about conducting maybe even an organizational readiness assessment that covers your team structure, your sponsorship, your governance, your adoption, your communication. And in this regard, we have been doing a lot of discovery workshops. And we've been hosting a lot of workshops that take into input your strategy. What are your vision? What are your objectives? What are your KPIs? What are the different personas within your organization? How do we uncover the insights? What kind of strategies and tactics do we need to drive your change across your data project lifecycle? And here we're talking about things like steering, resistance management, user feedback and measurement, and things like that. So becoming a data-driven organization, it requires contribution from you, the business, and from our entire workforce. This is not something that data or digital or technology, Philip, myself, or Jochen can do just on our own. We need your partnership to be able to do this. And so we have been doing discovery or ideation sessions where we essentially help you detail with, let's say, 10 or 15 participants, a defined framework that we will give you to create a list of how you might, for example, use data or analytics within your organization and what value it might provide. And so after these sessions, we typically have participants that will say something like, hey, you know, I spend a great deal of time managing, for example, truck and vessel schedules by hand or on an Excel spreadsheet. And now, you know, and that process took me away from like higher value activities. We had another staff member highlight how improving the forecasting could help better identify which routes to add. This was a supply chain. And so once we have all of these participants create a list of all of their challenges, then they all work together with us to consolidate all of these similar ideas and then pick, let's say, 5 or 3 use cases for our data team to evaluate. And then we vote on it in terms of prioritizing. And then we look at potential impact of the use case, feasibility given the data and different categories of benefits it can bring. And, you know, lastly, I would say, in conclusion, that there are a lot of benefits from the kinds of efforts that we're talking about. You only saw 3 use cases today, but this kind of ideation session and team governance that we're proposing to do with your organizations and the individual divisions, it'll help you in 5 broad ways. One is foresight, which is helping you create data and using it to create predictive capabilities that will allow your staff to predict more accurately anything from potential equipment failures, for example, in the case of, you know, cement quality prediction or other things, or to the next best product a customer may likely need to buy. We will also be able to help you with assistance, which is saving your staff time by providing, let's say, ready access to data needed to answer questions by automating time-consuming activities, things like that. Help you with expertise, help you with explanation, which is understanding not just what customers prefer, but why they prefer it, using data to understand how weather or route changes or competitor price changes can affect sales, things like that. And lastly, simulation. Data will help, you know, we can create simulations that will allow you to test nearly potential scenarios before you can make a decision. So, and for all of this, we require obviously a platform, a technology that will enable this to happen. In addition to the change management, in addition to the business that topics that I talked about. And for that, you know, we have Jochen here, who will tell you a little bit about, you know, what we're doing on the technology side, because the fact that one requires a scalable technology platform to support this type of global data innovation, you know, use case scenarios amplified by the democratization of data embedded across our enterprise. And so, you know, this is data which is the exhaust from our business applications, and that is trapped in departmental silos. You know, how do we unleash this massive potential? And so we need to have an IT infrastructure that must be transformed at speed and at scale. And the objective is that all of the available data, whether it's internal, external, must take center stage to allow for the discovery of insights powered by analytics and artificial intelligence or machine learning. And for that to happen efficiently at a breakneck pace, IT needs a platform and an AI infrastructure at an unprecedented scale and with agility. And so, you know, and frankly, it's about results. On the data-driven journey, only business outcomes matter, not the analytics and the plumbing, but the analytics and the plumbing is extremely important aspect of this process. And so with that, you know, I'd like to invite, you know, our CIO, Jochen Röhling, to talk about the platform that we have deployed and are, you know, going to be enhancing and deploying in partnership with some leading vendors and providers.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to say congratulations to the teams that have been executing so well on these fantastic use cases that have been shared today. I think there have been many more in the group, be it around logistics, the teams of Alexander Scheld, Plants of Tomorrow with Guillermo Brusco and the teams, or e-commerce. I think we have so many fantastic examples already that as a group, we don't have to hide in terms of good success cases. I'm also extremely, I would say, a little bit surprised about the outcome of that survey, but more so excited, because I also believe, and you might be finding it strange that I say that, but technology really is not the key element that stops us from executing and becoming a very data-driven organization. I think that for the cases that had been illustrated and talking about the change management here, what I believe is key is to bring the different skills together and to explore and to try and see what kind of opportunities you can find by setting, and I think that's what's addressed here, by setting a business challenge and formulate clearly a business statement. I think we have to go very explorative about it. And I think that everybody can consider that technology here really is not the showstopper at all. I think over the past months and years, the group has done a lot of good cases. But regardless, I would like to share what's happening currently also in the background with IT. I think that most of you that are interacting on those couple of initiatives will be privy to the information of what is being done. What we have decided from an IT standpoint is not to just go ahead and pump all of our data into, let's call it a data lake. We deliberately decided to use these concrete and precise projects or initiatives or POCs and MVPs to develop. And here I would say there are five priorities that we look at if I summarize in a nutshell. At first, it is the foundation building, right? You have to make sure that the systems that are serving as a source of information, be it TIS in the plants or IVMS for trucks, are in place so you can basically leverage on these sources. Here also security plays a role, and edge computing is, for example, a topic that jointly with the team of Laurent Seiler we are currently looking at. The second priority is basically how can we access the data, as Anurag just mentioned before. We have quite some substantial data on hand in our systems. How can we, so to say, open up our backend and our assets to speak and stream the data to a common platform? And here is where we have done a selection of an integration platform. We have decided ultimately to go for MuleSoft and all of the digital centers, be it in the Americas, in EMEA, or in India, they are leveraging on that topic. The third one then is to make sure that the right data platform architecture is in place. And as you all know, we have given platforms that we are leveraging, and we had RFPs undertaken to put the platform to the next level now. This is basically in the very closing step, but regardless of that work that has to happen around the data platform, it should not stop any business leader or stakeholder from exploring what can be done with their data. This is not a showstopper. We have the capabilities in-house or with partners that we leverage on. The fourth priority, I would say, is around skill building. And this to me is really a topic that's close to my heart. We have around about 1,000 internal people in IT, the same number approximately external people. And we have to also make sure that we are setting up the right skills in the organization to serve these different projects. Here we are not only hiring at the moment in our Global Digital Hub in India, we are also making sure that we are training our people and develop them in the right areas in all of our other digital centers. And last but not least, and that's, I would say, change management. I feel a little bit like the times are over where you skits out exactly what you want to do in the very beginning. You have a huge statement and then you go for a multi-million investment decision for these kind of topics. I think, and that's where I feel like the organization is actually pretty far if I listen also to other organizations around us. Let's start small. Let's try, experiment, find what opportunities is in the data, and only if needs to be, you scale it up. And that's where the investment may play a significant role. So that's basically a little bit in a nutshell what we are doing from the IT side. But coming back to the survey that you all still see, I'm glad to see that none of the stakeholders in this call that have responded to this survey actually see the technology as a showstopper. For sure, it is important. For sure, data quality is important. For sure, data governance is important. But I also believe, and that's what we reflect with other organizations, change management and a clear business objective or a lean statement of what you want to achieve is key here. And I think you should not shy away from starting small, experiment, fail fast, and come up with a better solution. So I think we are well set and clear plans ahead for the different functions to make this work at scale.
Absolutely. I think, Jochen, thank you for sharing. And I just want to stress that message. It's exactly how you said. We've been working on the background a lot to get the fundamentals in place. And now I think it's really for the business leaders, as you said, to explore, to test, to go down the journey. You've seen deliberately that we've seen some cases where you would say they're very advanced, very sophisticated. Some cases, potentially, you look at them, you're like, oh yeah, I can do that similarly with Excel. That doesn't matter, right? It's really about the impact you want to drive, the impact you want to drive for the business, the first step that creates value, that gets you into the journey, the first step that proves to your team that a different working method is possible, that potentially, they will not be replaced, they will actually be enabled to become more successful in the work that they do, and then building from there. I found it exciting to see so many great suggestions and angles on how to develop the 3 cases that we have here further. Can we connect it to this system? Can we also manage this with more integration into sales? How are we structuring additional data pools that get in there? These are all fantastic discussions. They hint at the long-term potential of this. But in order to really get there, we need to get started. We need to get everyone primed and geared up and readied up for the first cases. We saw 3 leaders here who do this. I think there are many more out there who are excited on the journey. And let's take those first steps and let's make sure that we get the change management right, that we get our teams rallied behind that and excited, and essentially progress along the journey and learn and scale up our skill level and our sophistication as we go.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Jochen and Anurag. There are currently no open questions. There is a comment of Philip. He writes an observation. It might be specific to our situation, but in the change management part, it's a surprising amount of work, especially in the plants where people are quite happy flying blind.
I think, Bengt, some of the participants have also posted questions in the chat. You may want to look quickly in the chat. There's a question that I find is really relevant around how can we in the countries make sure we have the right digital skills in developing change management.
Yeah, and this question I think comes from Irene Mantilla in Mexico.
Yeah. So anybody of you can give an answer there? How do the countries upskill?
I would like to share an experience which I found truly inspiring. It's there was an initiative ongoing. It's called mPredict. It's part of the Plants of Tomorrow initiative led by Guillermo Brusco and Laurent Seiler. And I remember that first kickoff where I was invited in a plant in, I think it was Kujavi, and there were people from the plant. Now, I would say, were those exactly digital people or non-digital people? Hard to define. What you saw in the room, and I think that's really the learning or the inspiring part I took from it, is there were production specialists. There were people that are process specialists. They've been doing that work for many years. And there were people around that knew how to deal with the data, be it data scientists, data engineers, project managers. I think how can you become a more digital organization is by formulating a statement, putting a multidisciplinary team in place. And here for sure, the digital team, the IT teams can provide the guidance and advisory, but it's all about to try to enter into it and develop even your own organizations along the path. That is basically something I would like to share.
And I mean, I can add to it. I mean, it's also, I think we're also here to help you with that process. And that's the whole purpose of doing discovery sessions and ideation sessions, where we can, because at least some of us have had, past experience in terms of conducting these sessions and really extracting the value out in terms of defining how to do, skill development and change management and really get this project through. And we've done that in the case of the 3 projects that you've seen today. So I think that in addition to what, in augmenting really further from what Jochen said, if you sort of ask us, how do you, and how to do these kinds of things, I think it would be, I think we can help participate in that process and really help you think about how to do these sessions and how to extract value out of it.
And sorry, my line crashed previously, but it's really, the only way to get somewhere is to get started. Wake up as a digital leader, as we like to say, and drive change from there. We are nearly out of time. Bengt, would you like to have some closing statement?
Yeah, just kind of a thank you to all the speakers today and the participants for the interaction, and maybe draw your attention to the last slide in the deck. It's an upcoming event. LafargeHolcim will host again an Open Innovation Day, this time together with IBM, with a focus on sustainable construction. And there will be lots of information around the ORIS road platform. So feel free, if this is of interest for you, to register there. I will also share with you in the upcoming days an email with a link. With that, thanks to all of you, and have a nice rest of the day.